Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's the No Name Cinema Society. It's May the 9th, 2017. How are you all? This is the Sound Off, our freeform segment, the Society Sound Off. Hi, I'm Jonathan Betzler, one of your hosts, and this is the 23rd time we're doing this Sound Off. It's rounding out episode 39, we call it. It's a series of episodes, really. In each episode, that over in 2017, which is their third season, we're going to spread out over the course of really 2 weeks. And here's the schedule of what we've been doing. On April 27th, we did our current feature, which is a film called The Promise, directed by Terry George. On May 1st, we talked about our Indie Spotlight, which is a film called Killer Joe, directed by William Friedkin. And on May 5th, just 4 days ago, we did our classic movie discussion, which was David Lean's Brief Encounter. And now we hear the Sound Off, where we have a freeform segment, and we have some things that we want to talk about, and some things to clean up from previous episodes and previous, whatever. So that's what sort of the Sound Off is all about. So first, let me introduce my cohorts for the Sound Off. Let me see who gets introduced first. Let's go with Davey first. Davey Joe, Sound Off time.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, and of course, Jay to the Money, also known as Jay Money, as you see from his lower third there.
Happy Mother's Day, JP.
Thank you. It's not Mother's Day yet, but it's coming up. Thank you very much, though. I'm not a mother, though.
It's around this time.
It is.
And you are a mother in your own way, trust me.
I do. I am. I'm, as you may remember from the previous episodes, I'm in Playa del Rey for a little bit, which is in California by the beach. I'm cat sitting, and they're running around a lot right now. I don't know if you can hear them. They're not close enough for me to grab and show you. They're playing. It's cute. What are you guys drinking, speaking of playing?
Water.
Drunk Dave, living up to his name. Davey Joe, what do you got?
I got rum. Rum is delicious.
Nice. I've got Magic Hat here, sponsoring the episode in a way. And yes, I've had Magic Hat for the last few episodes. We had a whole 12-pack in the fridge here. But anyway.
I support them. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think I'd like it as much as I do, but that's beside the point. Something interesting, Jay Money, that you mentioned Mother's Day, because that's part of my May 9th story, is May 9th, 1914 was actually the very first Mother's Day. Woodrow Wilson declared Mother's Day a national holiday on May 9th, 1914, bringing it full circle there. Also, on May 9th, in 1958, Vertigo was released, which is a film we talked about in episode 14.3. Also today, May 9th, is Billy Joel's birthday. He turns 68 today.
That was all fascinating.
One thing I want to clean up from the Indie Spotlight is a trivia tidbit that we just ran all along in that episode I didn't get a chance to talk to you guys about is, so, I talked about how the play Killer Joe was written by Tracy Letts. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes.
Tracy Letts is also an actor, and he was actually in my #1 movie of 2016. Which was?
Oh. I mean, I know that we just discussed it relatively recently.
Both of
you was
my #1 movie.
Yeah, Christine, right?
Christine, yeah. Tracy Letts is a major supporting role in Christine. He plays Christine Chubbuck's boss. Tracy Letts also is a Tony-winning actor, in addition to being a Tony-winning playwright for writing August Osage County, which I think premiered on Broadway in 2008. I want to say. He also won a Tony as an actor for a revival of a play that connects to our 1966 show.
Yes.
Yes.
You guys can guess the film we talked about more than any other in a 1966 show?
Chinatown?
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Davey, I'm going to give you a point for that. I'm going to start a point system, and you are winning.
Go, Davey, go.
So Tracy Letts won Best Actor, a Tony for Best Actor in a Play for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which we talked about in 1966, and was in Christine, which we talked about in our top 10. See how it all comes full circle, guys? Tracy Letts.
Yeah, it's big.
Synergy. I love it. And talking about our top 10 of 2016 is a good segue to Tweet Beat. Tweet Beat is where we answer questions you guys ask on Twitter and Facebook, social media, whatever. We don't have an Instagram account. Who needs it? I just learned what Instagram was like 2 days ago anyway.
This is true,
actually. It really is stupid, by the way.
So we got a ton of questions. I mean, I'm very pleased. I hope you guys are, how well our finale shows are doing. Did you guys see my report on how well the finale shows did?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I saw that you sent it.
So yeah, we did a top 10 of 2016. We did an Oscar preview, and the shows that's doing Kick-Ass is our 1966 in review. We're gonna have a whole separate tweet beat related to that. This tweet beat's gonna be related to our top 10 and our Oscar preview. So, with that said, the first thing that people wanted to know is, last year we released the composite top 10. You guys wanted it again, and that is the reason for this movie behind me, because number one on our composite top 10 is Silence. And for the second year in a row, and here's the graphic here, for the second year in a row, our group number one is also Davey Joe's number one movie. Interesting how that happened. His number one movie last year was Creed. It was our composite number one, and this year it's Silence. Also, interestingly enough, is that both our number one composites, J Money has seen neither of them.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't believe I saw last year's number one, and I haven't seen this year's number one. Guys, yeah. I won't. Out of spite, I will not see either of them now. I commit from here on forward that I will never see Creed or Silence.
I would love to hear about Silence, but...
What was your number one?
His was Arrival, which you can see as number 4 on this list. And I'm a little disappointed at the presence of Moonlight and The Lobster and Manchester by the Sea on this list, but I think J Money is equally disappointed at the presence of Hacksaw Ridge on this list. But this is the composite list. This is what we're sticking by. But if we added up all the three of us, this is what we got. And that's the composite top 10. You guys can write it down. If you whether I liked it or not, or they liked it or not, I think we can all say these films are worth watching, all 10 of them, because one of us liked them, and in several cases, several of us liked them. I think it's definitely worth checking out these films, and let us know what you think about them, because as a group, we're recommending them. Any thoughts about this composite top 10 here, guys?
I don't agree with everything where it is, but I mean, obviously, as JB just said, everybody should watch these films one way or the other. So, what
is the highest ranking film on this list that you will see that you haven't, J Money?
That I will see that I haven't? I think the only movie I haven't seen that's on this list is, oh, no, that's not true. There's a couple of them on this list. I actually do want to see Silence. I mean, I'll give you that. I really do actually want to see Silence. I really didn't want to see Creed. I still feel like I probably should see Creed because you guys spoke so highly about it. It's not a movie I care about one way or the other, but I do actually want to see Silence, so I'll probably get around to it.
Creed is currently free on Amazon, by the way. But also the other ones that you didn't see on this list, I think Christine and Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yeah, and both of them I'm at least sort of interested in. I mean, Christine, I've heard a lot about for a variety of reasons, so I'm interested in that. Kubo and the Two Strings, I'd like to see at some point, but it's not a priority for me.
You haven't seen either of those either, I think, right?
No.
Davey?
Okay.
I haven't seen Christine or what was the other one?
Kubo and the Two Strings.
No, right. I want to see them both though.
I, on the other hand, have seen all 10 of these films, so I am going to give myself a point for that. All right, the next question on the list is on our Oscar preview and my follow-up show, how many Oscar predictions did we get right? And so on our main show, the Oscar show where all three of us participated, Jay Money and I got 5 of the 6 correct.
Wow.
We only missed Best Picture. We all missed Best Picture. Davey Joe is the only one that really disagreed with us on Best Actor, and we were right. He was wrong. He chose Denzel. He said Denzel was going to win it, and Jay Money and I were both right about Casey Affleck. So that was the main thing. So we did pretty well in the top 6. We were almost right on Best Picture, and I don't want to get into that now, but that's a whole other situation. On the follow-up show, I was, in terms of my predictions, I got 6 of 12 on that show, so a total of 11 out of 18 correct, including a Best Animated Short, Best Makeup, Best Production Design, Best Animated Feature, Best Original Score, and Best Cinematography. I got those all right. And out of the should have won, I got 4 out of the 12, including Best Live Action Short, Best Makeup, Best Production Design, and Best Editing. Did you guys see my follow-up show that I did by myself?
I mean, nope. I know it exists, as Davey Joe has said before.
You got one on me then. I'll have to check that out.
It's as far as it counts as a vlog. It's vlog number 33, and as far as vlogs go, it's doing better than some of the other vlogs. But
I would like to see that. I would like to see that.
Well, I mean, it's basically me just running through my predictions of the crafts categories. Like talking about Best Makeup. I mean, like one thing I want to that is worth talking about is I'm noticing a trend lately. Like it used to be like films. The Academy's favorite film would like dominate the Oscars and win a ton of awards. I'm getting the sense generally that they really are spreading out the Oscars. Like, I was surprised that I got both screenplay categories wrong. I mean, and I guess my point being, La La Land lost a lot more than I thought it would. We were all predicting a La La Land sweep, and we haven't had really a sweep in a long time. In fact, Best Director and Best Picture have not matched since 2011 with The Artist. Oh, you know what? It did match in 2014. Sorry, with Birdman. It did match. But I mean, like, so that's twice in the last 6 years that they've matched. Overall, I feel like there's some, like, the fact that Hacksaw Ridge won editing, and I think it deserved it, and AJ Money didn't, but the fact that it won editing and La La Land didn't, I thought was really noteworthy. Do you guys think this is a trend going on? The Academy wanted to spread things out, or I don't know. It's like, maybe I'm making it up.
Well, I don't know. I mean, how much of it is the Academy versus how much of it is like just the fact that they had probably maybe more voting this year than they had in previous years because there was such a controversy last year?
Well, I feel that was the case with the Best Picture winner. I think that was, that was a political statement and not necessarily about the best film. But I mean, like, that aside, like, I mean, do you feel like there's a sense of like, oh, I'm giving this film too much, and let's give this film another thing? Or am I just reading too much into it?
To what end do you feel like is the reason behind? I mean, I guess I'm unclear as to what you're suggesting is the real basis for it.
I don't think there's a basis for it. I mean, it's just a trend that I've noticed. And particularly, I think it's most typified by the disconnect between Best Director and Best Picture, which is happening a lot lately. Gravity in 2013 winning Best Director, but 12 Years a Slave winning Best Picture. Revenant winning Best Director, and Spotlight winning Best Picture. Again, this year, La La Land and Moonlight splitting. I mean, maybe it's a testament to the quality of films, or they think are better, or the races are closer. I don't know. But anyway, you guys don't have a lot to say about it, so I'll move on. Because I only wanted to have 4 more minutes on this tweet beat thing. So we got 3 more questions. And the question was, how did J Money and Davey I posted, our company does our own awards, and I sent you guys the winners. How does J Money and Davey feel about the Myriad Arts Award winners?
Positively.
You feel good about it? Do you guys remember what won?
No. What won? Refresh my memory.
All right. Well, why don't I put up a little graphic for you guys then? So here's a little graphic. Best Supporting Actress, as you can see, was Michelle Williams for Manchester by the Sea. Best Supporting Actor was Mahershala Ali for Moonlight. So that matched the Oscars. Best Actor was Denzel Washington for Fences. Best Actress was Viola Davis instead of Best Supporting Actress. She was Best Actress for us in Fences. Best Director, Mel Gibson for Hacksaw Ridge. Best Picture was the big surprise. Best Picture, the winner was this little film. Captain Fantastic won Best Picture at the Myriad Arts Awards. Surprising even me. And the most awards was won by La La Land. La La Land won 3, all in the craft categories. I think cinematography, production design, and score were the 3 it won. How do you guys react to those?
Positively, the Captain Fantastic thing. I don't know.
I didn't see
That's
Captain Fantastic.
Okay, but you're skeptical just at the sound of it.
No, I wanted to see it. I can't judge that. I certainly question your Best Director pick, but you know how I feel about that already. I also question Michelle Williams because I don't really feel like there was enough of a role there for her to really even qualify for the.
I mean, I agree with that, but this isn't my personal picks, right? Because I already listed mine on the Oscar preview.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. So now I'm questioning the rationality of your audience or your Myriad Arts in general. So that's okay.
We had a group of about 80 people that voted on the final awards.
Yeah. I mean, Trump also got elected, so, you can't really necessarily trust the model rule in the situation, but.
I mean, I like Captain Fantastic was, I think, my number 5 film. So I like the film a lot, and I certainly think it's it should be a Best Picture nominee. But I was surprised. It was funny because as people saw that it was nominated, because a lot of the votes come in online, but some of them happen at the actual Oscar party. And the Oscar party votes is when it really surged ahead. So it was interesting that people were like, "Oh my God, that's nominated! I love that movie." The fact that the Academy didn't recognize it as much immediately, but I think that there's this sort of underground, real passion for this movie, and I'm curious what Jim Money will eventually think of it. And I imagine it'll be an indie spotlight in 4 years or so.
I'll wait for it then.
Okay, so I had 2 questions more, but I'm probably only have time for one, and it's one that I think you guys will enjoy. People want to know what our worst film of 2016 was. What was the worst film that we saw from 2016? And who gets to go first? J Money. You're the hater, so you get to go first.
I mean, the problem is that there were so many to choose from. I mean, off the top of my head, because we're talking about it, I might even say Hacksaw Ridge. I know that would be really a really divisive thing to say here in this situation. You know, honestly, it's also not true. It's also I definitely saw much worse films than Hacksaw Ridge in 2016 because we saw a ton of films that were new releases that were absolutely terrible.
Well, I mean,
just
the worst film we reviewed. I mean, like part of me wants to say Girl on the Train. Another part of me wants to say Live by Night because Live by Night should have been better. But we saw a lot of bad ones.
Yeah, we saw a lot of bad ones. And I also feel like, I mean, like Girl on the Train was ridiculous, but I wouldn't even say it was necessarily the worst movie I saw. I feel like we definitely saw movies that were like embarrassing to sit through. Oh, you know, the latest series in fiction was pretty god awful.
The latest series of fiction.
You know, with the future and like there's a bunch of people that are in different sects of society.
Allegiant.
Oh yeah, it was Allegiant.
That was pretty solidly terrible from start to finish.
Is that your final answer? Allegiant is the worst?
Only because I cannot actually literally review everything we saw in front of me right now to actually answer the question. I'm going to say off the top of my head that might be the worst.
Okay.
But I feel like there was something.
On another sound off, if you want to come back to me with the, like, then that's cool.
I might do that.
Davey Joe?
I mean, everybody knows I thought Florence Foster Jenkins was the worst movie I saw last year.
You know, I know that can't be true. I know that can't be true.
It is absolutely true. It is absolutely true.
So both of you potentially films that are in my top 10 are your worst movies of the year. Craft-wise alone, it can't be the worst movie of the year.
No, but it can because it's aggressively unfunny comedy. Allegiant is a triumph of cinematic genius next to Florence Foster Jenkins.
J Money, how do you respond to that?
No. Davey Joe is he's off his head. I mean, I can't explain Davey Joe's preferences at certain points. I mean, there's some things he understands perfectly to a T, and there are some things he just completely does not manage to grasp. I mean, that's Davey Joe. That's ridiculous. You are a cracked out whorehouse, is what you are of ideas. I mean, I can't explain why you would even say that. You know, Live by Night might actually win for me because I mean it's supposed to be a far superior film than the Allegiant movies. It was such a terrible film.
Well,
it might just.
I mentioned Live by Night is because it should have been better. Like it had so much potential.
Right. No, I mean, to your point, I guess, JB, it's like it should have been a better film. They really like Allegiant movies. You can't go in expecting much. So when it doesn't deliver, you can't be like, oh, what did I learn here? I guess I should do this. Live by Night had a lot of promises. It was awful on so many levels. You know what? I feel like I have to revise my answer to Live by Night. I feel like I'm compelled by that history.
Live by Night is the episode we talked about, episode 38.1. Girl on the Train was 34.1. Allegiant was 25.1. And Florence Foster Jenkins, I might forget that one. 32.1 is our Florence Foster Jenkins episode. So anyway, the worst film, so Live by Night I think was the worst film I saw that we reviewed. But the worst film I saw all year, and David Joe, I don't know if you can argue this, Assassin's Creed was the worst film I've seen in a long time.
You know, I still haven't seen it.
So
why did you see it?
My brother enjoyed the video game. I'm with my brother, and I was in the December rush. I was trying to see all those movies by the end of trying to hit 70 movies in 2016, and I was only at like 60 in December 1st. So I was trying to see a bunch at the end of December, and so whatever was out.
We should do a top we should do a top 5 of like the best video game movies because I don't believe there are any really good video game movies. I mean, there probably is someone. There's probably one out there somewhere.
I don't know if I've seen enough, but I also want to, before we go on to the top 5, I did want to tell Davey Joe I've already seen 30 movies in 2017 so far.
That's really good.
None of them have been, except for The Promise, none of them have been released in 2017. But I've seen 20 movies 30 movies in the theater, and I've paid for 0 of them. That's the beauty of 2017 so far.
That's pretty good.
Wow.
I would have seen more if I had any money, but things are bad right now. I'm worried about seeing our next what do you call it, current feature in a few days. Anyway. So, are you guys ready to move on?
Yeah, let's go.
Top 5 indie movies from 2011. All throughout 2016, our indie spotlights were all from 2011, from episode 23.2 all the way through episode 38.2. I recommended all of them, all 16 of those. So they're all movies that I like. So you won't get a lot of argument from me in terms of their top 5. At the time, we reviewed them in my descending preferential order. However, upon rewatching them for the show, my order is a little different. So I think you guys might be surprised at where I wind up on some of these. And so this is a special top 5 in the sense that we all get to do this because we all saw all the films. And Davey Joe, you liked them all too, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
So was it hard to come up with your top 5? It was hard for me.
Yeah, it is, and I have this sinking suspicion that I could do it 5 different ways. But this is where I landed, so we'll go with these.
All right. Well, I'll let you go first. Let me cut to you, and Davey, take it away.
All right, so I guess I'm doing number 5 first. Is that
number
5? A young adult would be number 5. I thought that the performance by Charlize Theron was excellent. Honestly, I didn't know she had. I knew she could do drama to combine comedy like that. I didn't necessarily see that coming. So it was a really great performance.
That surprised me. I didn't think that would be this high on your list. And it's funny because I as much as I liked it, as I recommended it, I liked it more the second time around. So like it certainly crept up the list for me. J Money, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Drive. But I want to say that I feel a little bit bad including on the list because I think that we had a debate about whether or not it really qualified as an indie. So it's on this list because of the list that we're pulling from. But I also would say, like, if it wasn't on this list, my number 5, if Drive wasn't included, would be Tyrannosaur, which was a movie that surprised me in the sense that it stuck with me. I mean, I didn't know anything about it going into it, but I thought more about the performances that I saw in it, and I thought more about the story after the fact. So it's sort of a tie. It's sort of like Drive, if we're going to include everything we actually talked about in terms of our indie, but if we're looking at like what might be considered real indies, I don't think Drive necessarily would fit on this list as well. So Tyrannosaur would probably edge it out.
Well, technically, yeah.
My number 5.
It was nominated for some Indie Spirit Awards. It's technically under 20 million. Independent distributor. It checked off some boxes, but I completely agree. We had a long debate, and I was on either side. And at that point of the season of the year, we were sort of like, trying to fill out the year. Is what I don't think we're going to have that problem in 2012. I sent you guys a pretty comprehensive list, and also it looks like we're going to do a lot less episodes this year. So I don't think we'll have that same issue because we had the same debate on 2012 as far as Moonrise Kingdom is concerned, and maybe we'll do it anyway. But yeah, that's I appreciate that, and I obviously like both films. My number 5 is a film called Circumstance. It's one of 2 Iranian films we discussed last year. Separation is the more well-reviewed one. It's actually Separation is the best performing indie spotlight we've ever done in terms of views. Everyone's going to prefer Separation more. Like Separation, Circumstance is a great story with great performances, including one extremely memorable one from the great Rexo Sixo Safai. Terrific use of music. It's a very sexy film, I think Circumstance is, which is one of the things that it has over Separation. It's more emotionally engaging for me, Separation, I feel like, is a complex cerebral experience, and obviously I love Separation. I really do. I understand Circumstance is less accomplished. It's a little rough around the edges, but that, I feel like, adds to the youthful energy and charm. So Circumstance is my number 5. Davey?
No, it's good. It's you surprised me there, because I would have thought Separation also, but well, anyway, it's a daring film because it's an Iranian film that deals with homosexuality, which to me is pretty amazing, and it's a great movie in and of itself. The story's great, so good pick.
All right, Mr. Rum Diary, you're probably not happy with that one.
Is that me?
Yeah, who's drinking rum?
Oh, that's a good thing. You know what? Actually, I'm surprised it's not ended up on your list because I guess my memory of that show was that you didn't like it that much. I
picked it. I was the one who recommended it, and yeah, no, I really liked it, especially upon second viewing. I'll have to go back and watch the show, but I liked all the indies.
Yeah, I guess for some reason I remember you being more negative than positive during that show, but I mean, maybe I'm just mistaken at this point. I mean, I haven't really thought about it. Circumstance is fine. Maybe
maybe I was being nitpicky because it is rough around the edges. You know what I mean? I remember that.
Maybe that's what it is. I mean, I remember you calling out very specific shots that you thought were like kind of a little hacky and things like that. And I think that I remember you talking about some of the performances being kind of questionable. So maybe overall, I got the impression that you were more negative.
I remember liking the performances, but regardless, it stuck with me. You know what I mean? Like when we're looking at this list, I'm like, that movie it resonated. So number 4, I assume J Money's good to goes first this, and he does. J Money, you're number 4.
Well, just to echo some sentiments we already talked about, actually, Young Adult ended up for number 4 for me.
Oh wow!
And I enjoyed watching it when we watched it and we talked about it, but it's also, like, to your point, stuck with me in a way that I wasn't expecting. I go back to some of the emotional rawness of it, even though it's a comedy. It's a movie that's complicated because of the characters, but I think a lot about performance. I also think about Patton Oswalt a lot in this film. I guess it strikes close to home. I mean, maybe that's really what it comes down to for some of us. Something that I maybe associate with in certain aspects there. So,
we talked about that on the show too. Like, I think that it's the thing that's stuck close to home is also like the idea of going. We all live, at least Jay Money and I do, like live in sort of very populated city type areas and grew up in suburban areas. And Davey Joe is like from the boondocks. So I mean, like Jay Money and I going back to home, like, and the idea of feeling superior to people, like that really resonated in an uncomfortable way.
I don't know if that's the thing that struck close to home for me personally, but yeah, okay.
Just say that it is. Just agree, damn it.
Fine.
Davey Joe, you're number 4.
I'm gonna go with the Interrupters for my number 4.
Little documentary. I think the only documentary we've ever talked about in the show. Is that right?
Well, I don't know if you include that the music one.
You're right. We did do another documentary. You're right. I forgot all about that. The
oh yeah,
10,000 Feet on Earth, I think, or what was the name of it?
The Nick Cave one. Yeah.
The Interrupters. The scene that sticks with me is the apology scene. I thought that was an incredibly powerful thing in a movie that really stuck with me. The whole film is great, and I love following the different people, but that scene is so powerful that I couldn't just leave it off the list.
I brought up that scene too, I think, on the show. It's episode 33.2. We talked about that show. So yeah, cool. All right. No argument for me. David, J Money, do you have an argument
about that? No, that's fine. That it's a good movie. Yeah, I want to step back here for a second, JB. I really enjoyed the majority of our indies this year. There are a couple of things that obviously I didn't enjoy, but I don't know. A really good selection of indies, and I really enjoyed most of them.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm a little touched by it. Almost uncomfortably touched. So anyway, my number 4 is The Debt, which we talked about, episode 27.2. It's a taut, tense thriller. I think it's a coming out party for Jessica Chastain. When I first saw it, I hadn't seen much with her. It's an amazing, rich, layered performance from her. It's a terrific, intelligent screenplay, which incidentally is from the writer of what was my number 1 film of 2011. The same writer as X-Men First Class also wrote The Debt, which I think is pretty outstanding. Two screenplays there. And this is an episode where we actually did talk about some great sound design when we talked about The Debt in episode 27.2. We don't talk about it very much, but the opening flashback, the train station, the use of piano, the overall direction, I think, by John Madden of The Debt is really strong.
Yeah,
it's a good pick. Yeah.
J Money, you're speak.
Yeah, it's a solid film. It's an entirely solid film. I mean, I think that I had some third act in it, which maybe sunk it away for me personally, but overall, I wouldn't say it's a bad movie at all. It's a good film.
Okay, so that brings us to Davey Joe, who's going to do his number 3.
Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene is my number 3.
Which incidentally, the producer of Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene directed Christine, my number 1 film of 2016.
Oh wow! The thing that hit me about this film and the reason it stuck with me is it has this sort of tension, this feeling of a pot that is just about to boil over, and it's there's an unpredictability to it.
Did you steal that from someone else's review? That doesn't sound like your own words.
No. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate that. Anyway, yeah, I liked it. So there.
That sounds more like Davey.
That's a fair assessment right there. Yeah.
J Money?
I also enjoyed Martha, the Triple M movie. And I don't want to, yeah, that's right. Quadruple. I don't want to give away spoilers. It didn't end up on my list, but it was actually very close to getting on my list. So.
Okay, your number 3.
My number 3 is Shame, which I think that we all also enjoyed. There was a lot of great movies to pick from. The performances, again, that stayed with me. I also enjoyed the bleakness of it. I'm sure that JB can attest to the idea of that.
He loves his bleakness. That's why you're going to love Silence so much.
I do. I'm sure you're probably true about that. It's been almost a year, so it's hard for me to really come up with more excuses other than the fact that it really left me with a positive feeling.
It's over a year. We reviewed that in January of 2016.
I mean, it's a thoroughly uncomfortable movie to watch, but it's worth the payoff. There's a lot of really beautiful slow moving scenes, a lot of great sort of uncomfortable moments. So I recommend it.
I didn't pick it because I didn't want to talk about it. That's how uncomfortable it is.
Wow. Okay. All right. So it's time for my number 3, I think. I'm going with the last indie reviewed, which initially, also similar to Drive, we did not initially do because we didn't consider it. It was not indie enough, potentially. But I'm going with 50-50 here. When we first did the show, I actually said it was the highest indie on my top 10 of that year. After rewatching some of these, it fell down a little bit. I still think that it's perfect tonally. I think it's a great balance between comedy and drama with a Wilder-esque precision. And by Wilder-esque, I mean Billy Wilder. But with a modern sensibility. I think it's actually a masterpiece of honesty, humor, and humanity. They say, in terms of endearment, they said, you'll laugh, you'll cry. That was their tagline. But I feel like you'll laugh harder on 50-50, and you'll cry harder, too. I think in terms of emotional engagement, it was a really strong film with the gravitas of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, a really strong actor, compared with Seth Rogen and his comic sensibilities. They actually make a great team, and it's a film that I enjoy very, very much. So that's my number 3. J-Money, I don't think you like this one as much as I recall. No,
I didn't like it at all, unfortunately. No. But, one man's trash, so that's okay.
That's common for us. Okay. Davey, anything on 50-50, or do you want to move on?
No, 50-50 was great, and I think you pretty much covered it. So yeah, good.
Good. Well, why don't you, since we're here, why don't you give us your number 2? Moving right along.
My number 2 is Melancholia, and I'm probably gonna.
It was your number 1.
It could have been. I will probably strike up another fight, like I did the first time I said this, but I like the fact that it's squarely, in my opinion, in the sci-fi realm, while exploring greater themes, which I think makes it a lot of fun and kind of a special movie in that regard. I thought it was excellent.
J-Money, do you want to respond to his sci-fi comment?
Well, I guess I'll respond by saying my number 2 is also Melancholia. So
that's cool, but I mean, like you also, as I recall, in episode 29.2, took issue to this sci-fi.
I don't think it's a sci-fi, but I mean, if it ends up at number 2 on our best of list, I'm not going to make too many concerns about it.
Obviously, we all like the film. I actually thought both of you are going to have it as your number 1s, but the argument, and I guess if you want to see the full argument on whether it's not sci-fi, you can tune into episode 29.2. But yeah, what were you going to say about Melancholia, J-Money? I'm
probably just going to echo everything that we've already talked about in a lot of ways. I mean, it's visually kind of astounding. It's kind of a wonderfully slow, terrible film. Terrible in the sense of the content, not the actual film itself. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed, again, the bleakness. I thoroughly enjoyed the way that everything kind of fell apart. I enjoyed the surreality of it, which I think is what Davey Joe is getting to when he talks about sci-fi.
I think because Just Another Planet is involved, he considers it sci-fi.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sci-fi movie at all. I think it's a movie that involves sort of supernatural elements that make it seem, kind of like it has a sci-fi quality to it because I think it's a theme that other sci-fi movies have explored. But the movie is not about sci-fi. It's about people reacting to this, and it's about a character specifically reacting to it. So, having said that, there are plenty of things that are sort of surreal about it, and I really appreciated that. So. It's a thoroughly enjoyable movie. It's depressing and enjoyable at the same time.
Bleak. It's bleak.
Bleak. Very bleak.
I can't imagine what your number 1 would be. I don't know if we can find a bleaker film. Melancholia, but when you were talking and saying it's not sci-fi and stuff, I cut to Davey Joe and he looked so stressed, like he was I mean, oh look. We have a visitor. Do you see a visitor?
Yeah.
That's Ginger. Ginger's behind me. She's blind. She's beautiful. That's here. baby. She just sort of popped up there. Scared me a little bit, but she's cute, so it's okay. I'm getting all sorts of texts as well from viewers who also enjoyed Ginger's appearance. So you guys ready for my number 2?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So talk about movies J Money hates. My number 2 is The Conspirator, which, as I recall, Davey Joe and I found to be a compelling legal drama with moral ambiguity. Craft elements are amazing, especially at the indie level, and performances. And I think for all these indies, we keep referring to performances, and I think there's no exception here. James McAvoy is outstanding, gives a performance of career. Robin Wright, really terrific. Kevin Kline, Tom Wilkinson. It's just really, really terrific stuff. J Money, I'll give you the floor to say a negative thing about The Conspirator.
Well, I don't think there was anything wrong with the performances. I mean, I don't think there was anything stand up about the performances either. I think that everybody did a fine job. My issue is really more about the way that it ended up looking, and we had a lot of discussion about the difference of our opinion about the cinematography in it. I thought it looked Lifetime, cheesy, horrible movie.
I just think it had a lot of texture and shape to the lighting. Davey Joe, do you want to back me up with the cinematographer, Conspirator a little bit?
No, I agree. I thought the look of the film was great. But I liked it a lot, and I thought definitely what you said about having an interesting legal bent. It made it a pretty compelling film.
Okay, time for number 1s. Number 1 indie of 2011 that we reviewed, and I mean, you could argue that, all right, so these may not be the number 1 films of 2011. It may not, but they might be. I think it is in my case. It is now anyway. And I think you could also make the argument that we didn't see enough indies in 2011. Although, I mean, there are a bunch that I watched or rewatched, and we were looking for other films instead of Drive and 50-50. I watched other 2011s that I hadn't seen, indies, to see if I had something else that was a little more indie, and I didn't like them at all. So these are certainly, if not the best, very close to the best. So with that said, J Money, your number 1 indie of 2011. Sorry.
Okay, my number 1 is actually a movie that we've actually discussed a little bit briefly already in terms of this list. It's A Separation.
I thought you'd have Separation and Melancholia flip, but okay, there you go.
Okay, yeah. I think that in the end, A Separation's script basically won me over. I think that it was just a more complex and interesting movie. I think it was such a tight presentation of a really complex issue, complex things that were happening with characters, that I have to give it the upper hand on the situation.
And even when I talked about Circumstance, I talked about how complex and challenging it was.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I mean,
I just feel like
I went for something that was more affected me emotionally, and Ginger agrees with me clearly.
She's blind, first off, so I don't know if you really want to.
She's adorable though. She's the cutest. So anyway, I mean, obviously, you said great things about The Separation in this show, which I don't know if you guys saw this in the email, but it is now our most successful indie spotlight. And just in the last term, it's done gangbusters. So that's kind of exciting. Maybe because it's your number 1 indie, J Money. So yeah, I mean, lots of great things, and I'm willing to bet it's Davey's number 1 as well. Davey?
Drive.
I should have known that. How did The Separation not make the list?
It was tough. It's a great movie. But Drive. Come on, Drive. I love Drive. And I think
Drive.
So you clearly didn't have the same issue that J Money did in terms of whether.
No, don't care. Not at all.
So what's good about Drive to you? I mean, I obviously like it too. I recommend.
There are a couple things that stick with me. One, I love Albert Brooks in his film. To me, it's a really memorable performance, and it's something also that I didn't see coming at all. Some of the action sequences, the scene, the shot over the shoulder in the car where you see the other car flying through the air. I love that.
Generally speaking, you're a style over substance guy for the most part.
Not as a rule, but I don't mind it occasionally. That's definitely the feel of this film. So it worked.
So I think you guys can also probably guess my number 1. Anyone take a stab, or you not want to bother? Nobody?
Let me think. Is it Melancholia?
It is not Melancholia. J Money, you want to take a guess or just want me to announce it?
It's not a separation, is it?
It is not. It is not. I had circumstance slightly ahead of a separation. Separation could be 6 if we went that far. But
Sure.
instead, I'm going with your number 3 film. I've got Shame as my number 1. Once again, it's the same point performances, like amazing, amazing performances. And it's my type of movie because it's naturalistic and character-driven, effective and powerful without being flashy like something like Drive. The directorial choices also match the emotion and theme of each moment, expertly crafted, and the performances are so good it feels like improv. And J Money already talked about it a little bit, but so Shame is my number 1.
Yeah, that's a very solid example of what the majesty of Shame is. You know, it's funny because I feel like Shame is a movie that I kept in mind recently as we were watching one of our indies recently, Killer Joe. I felt there was a similar relationship between brother and sister in some ways. And so I thought about Shame a lot. It seemed like there were some parallels.
And Davey, it makes you uncomfortable.
But in a good way. It's a really good movie. I think that his problem along with the way they work in, not just the problem with his romantic relationships, but also his family with his sister. I think that it's pretty rich storytelling. So.
All right, so guys, that's our top 5 2011 indies. You guys need to sum anything up, or can I move on?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay, so
Move on.
I love it. I love moving on, and it's time for our second run. The idea of a second run is a movie came up or would have come up on a previous episode. In some cases, one of us hadn't seen it, then we see it, and then we talk about it. So it's a second chance to talk about this movie. I'm going to give them a choice with these numbers here. So the graphic's down now, and now I've got 4 different films that we could talk about here. So you got to choose a number. I don't know if you can see 3 and 2 and 1. So you choose a number. Whatever mystery movie is behind it is what we talk about tonight. And then the others we might get to another time. I don't have index cards here because I'm in Playa. Ginger, you okay? Look at Ginger's excited. I don't know what number she's going to choose. What do you guys think? Pick a number.
J Money, go ahead. I pick numbers all the time.
Oh, I'm also I didn't realize I was also invited to pick a number at this point. I'm going to go with number 3.
Number 3. All right. Number 3, I don't know if you guys would have heard of this movie. I know you didn't see it because, well, it'll become obvious in a second. See if the writing. You guys see that?
Nope. It's not going to help me at all.
What does it say?
Maybe Joe's going to have to read that one.
His glasses are off too. It's
entirely pointless doing that.
it's for the audience. There are other people watching than just you bastards.
Well, then don't ask us the question if we can read it. Obviously, we cannot read it.
Shakespeare Walla is the name of it, and it's a film from 1966. It's one of our 1966 films, and it's noteworthy for a couple reasons. Mainly because you guys know what where my first job in the industry was. Like, it started in college, and it was also my first job out of college officially. Where I started my career. It's a fairly noteworthy company.
Yeah.
I started my career with a company called Merchant Ivory Productions I started in 1996. And this film from 1966 is James Ivory and Ismail Merchant. This is their second film together, Shakespeare Walla, and came out in America in 1966. Their first was called The Householder. And I saw it once before back in 1997 while I was working with them, and they were doing a 35-year retrospective of their partnership at the Paris Theater in New York. So I had to see pretty much all their films, but they were free, so at least there was that. So I saw this once, but it was in the middle of seeing a bunch of all their films. And if you watch one Merchant Ivory film, and if you have to see them all within like a 2-week period, it can get pretty tiring. So I don't know if my perspective on it at the time was pretty fresh, but I rewatching it again, it was now like a nice trip down memory lane because it's been 20 years, and now also working there, the actors that are in Shakespeare Walla were still friendly with Jim and Ismail 30 years later, and so I saw them as adults. Like, they're young in this movie Shakespeare Walla, but I met them as adults and I knew them as people and seeing their young versions again, it was much more impactful in a nostalgic point of view. So that's my personal connection to it. But it's also one of our 1966 films. And Jim Ivory is a director. You guys have seen some other Merchant Ivory films before, I presume.
Yeah, definitely. You probably have, Davey.
Room of the View, Howard's End, Remains of the Day, Jefferson in Paris, Soldier's Daughter Never Cries.
I believe I have not seen any of those movies.
Oh. Okay, not even Remains of the Day. That was probably one of the big ones. Bostonian. Anyway, so one thing I'll say about the movie is the imagery is very striking, especially in its use of foreground elements. Very rich black and white cinematography, but as with a lot of Jim's films, it's very slowly paced. And also Jim's films, the performances are terrific, although it's hard to understand why, because if you're with Jim on set, he almost never talks to the actors. And I mean, obviously knew him as an older director, so maybe it's different. Like I knew him in the 90s. Not his 90s, the 90s. He's almost in his 90s now, but no, I guess he's in his 80s. But regardless, I don't know how he gets so amazing performances, and maybe that's a lesson to directors. He just leaves them alone, and I guess that's maybe that's the best thing to do with actors sometimes, and particularly with these actors, because essentially the story of Shakespeare Walla it's about a Shakespeare troupe, British Shakespeare troupe touring India and performing various Shakespeare plays for people in India. Upper caste, sure. And so that was their whole lives, which incidentally was also the lives of the family that played the parts in the movie. Like it was the Kendall family, Jeffrey Kendall, his daughter Felicity, his wife Laura Liddell, and their daughter and their son-in-law Shashi Kapoor. They were all in this movie and played parts similar to the ones that they did in real life. So it was sort of inspired by them. Once it became a love story between Felicity Kendall, the young daughter, and Shashi Kapoor, who was in real life married to Felicity's sister Jennifer, but that's beside the point. What was really interesting is the concept of this British company touring through India trying to make ends meet. Like that was really fascinating to me, especially because I knew it was true. I had some issues there where I felt like the movie got sidetracked. Performances are great though. Felicity Kendall's her first role. She's a real standout, very charismatic, a real presence. Her father definitely handles both Shakespeare and the family struggle. So it's definitely a movie worth seeing. And also another fun tidbit is the movie music was done by famed Indian filmmaker Satyajit Ray. He actually, instead of directing, he was the composer for this movie, and it was really good at that too. It's a memorable score and very effective, and it's definitely a movie worth watching. Obviously I had some issues with it, but it's interesting in many ways, and also I'm also very impressed with the way, like the fact that not only Jim and Ismail as director and producer, but also the screenwriter Ruth Prowar Javala, some of the actors, they would work together for 30 plus years on films. It's kind of amazing if you think about it, that kind of camaraderie and partnership is not only did they work together, they all lived in the same building in New York on the East Side, and they all shared a house upstate together. All of them. It's really fascinating, their story, but that's beside the point. So I assume you guys had not seen Shakespeare Walla.
Nope.
No.
Has anybody even heard of it?
No. But I'm intrigued.
Are you honestly intrigued?
No, I am. I'm always interested in the movies you talk. Believe it or not. I mean, not necessarily what you have to say about them, but the movies themselves. No.
Oh, I see. I see where we went.
If you put it on the list of things that we watch for the show, I would watch it.
J Money, anything I say make you interested in this movie?
I'm sure it's a good film. I don't think it's at the top of my priorities at the moment, but it's not like I would necessarily turn it down if it was on.
Your priorities are just aren't with the show in general.
That's certainly true. That's absolutely 100% true. Yes.
Oh, sad. So, guys, we finished our first 4 videos of the season. How do you feel about this new setup, this new system?
I like it.
It seems great.
So doing every video every couple days, you like it,
Yep.
J Money?
Yeah. Do I? Yep. I think that's a good way to do it. Spread out the content content.
Yeah. And how do you feel about the shows overall? Were they good shows?
I mean, they took place over such a long period of time that I'm having a hard time remembering back to the specific shows. But I think that we had a solid performance from all of us, especially Davey Joe.
I feel much more relaxed than I did for our finale shows. I felt very uptight during those shows. But
yeah, I mean, Davey Joe really came out of his shell this time around, and I'm really happy to see him kind of speaking in public again. So
yeah,
kudos
right.
to you.
And he had that one comment, like, what was it that didn't sound like him? Something about pot boiling over or something, about Martha, Marcy, and Marlene. But
this is good.
With that, do you guys want to say bye?
Bye.
Bye.
Say bye again, Davey.
Bye again, Davey.
I love it. They've been watching Little George and Gracie. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting of the No Name Cinema Society is adjourned.